Welcome, everyone. Hello, my name is Jackie Kwan, and I'm with Uplifter, and welcome to our Wednesday webinar series. With me today, I have Garrett Trod, our product expert, and as well Sandro Yarzin, who's part of our customer service team as well. So just want to welcome everybody and thank everybody for joining us. This is a new series that we're actually going to be having on a regular basis. We're going to have these webinars every Wednesday. And what we're going to do is we're going to try and cover off different topics within Uplifter. And as new features get released and different elements get implemented into Uplifter, we'd like to share those new features with you as well. So we're hoping that with each week, different administrators of different clubs and organizations will find different useful tidbits of information from these webinars. We'll also be recording these webinars and keeping them online so that if you want to share them with other members of your team, so that they learn more about Uplifter and so that you're not stuck with teaching them everything that you've learned through these webinars, you'll be able to reference those as well. So this will be a series that will be growing as we move forward, and we're very excited to have everybody join us. So for our very first webinar, what we are looking to do today is to actually provide you with an overview of what's very similar to a liftoff call that you would have had when you first came on board with Uplifter. So for some of you, some of these little details might be things that you do every day, so they're very familiar to you. For some of you as well, you might have just forgotten some little tricks and tips that we might have, and so this would be a nice little refresher course. And as well, like I said, this would be a great opportunity for you to share these details with other members of your team as they learn to use Uplifter as well. So one last thing as well, just to let you know, anybody who is attending the webinar, we are going to keep the microphones on mute. If you have any questions, feel free to enter them into our chat window. We'll probably respond to them afterwards directly to you via email or address them on a future webinar as well. So with that being said, I would like to hand over the microphone to Garrett Trod. He's amazing at doing these liftoff calls and doing all of the training here at Uplifter. And I'm just going to let him take it away.
That's a lot of pressure. Okay, thank you very much. Hello, everyone.
Pressure.
Thank you so much for joining us. As Jackie noted, today's call is an introduction to Uplifter. So this is a perfect starting point for new admins, existing admins that are looking to refresh, whomever wants to learn more about Uplifter. Today, we're going to be covering creating member accounts, permissions, programs, categories, facilities and locations, seasons, product subscriptions and tickets, policies, and custom fields. We have a plethora of things to go through today. The call is scheduled to be about an hour, so sit back, relax, and let's begin. On your screen presently is the Townsville Figure Skating site. Townsville's figure skating site, and this site is one of our demo sites where we can sort of play around and see how things work out. Now, the fact that we are using a skating site won't actually have an effect on what we're going to be doing and what we're going to be setting up. If you're a gymnastics club, a swim club, MMA club, whatever it might be, all of these concepts are still applicable to how you're going to be beginning and using Uplifter. With that said, I'm going to try and do my best to speak up a little bit here. With that said, let's get started. We're going to begin where everyone begins, and that is at landing on the Uplifter page. Now, this page is the public-facing page, which we're not going to talk too much about the public elements here, but when people land on this page here, they'll be able to select the login option, and they'll be able to log in if they have credentials, or select the first-time registering option, and fill in this form in order to generate what's known as a member account. Now, member accounts within the system are generally considered your moms, your dads, your parents, and your guardians, but absolutely everyone who wants to interact with the site in a truly meaningful way will need to generate a member account. So that does include your administrators, your coaches, your instructors, your board members, etc. Everyone will need to make a member account. So when you select when you create an account, after you've created an account, you'll be able to use the credentials that you generated in order to log in. Parents and guardians that have generated an account and logged in will then be taken to their account. My apologies, went to the wrong spot here. And from their account page, they'll actually land on their participants page here. Now, if they don't have any participants to start, they'll be prompted to create one, which of course they can do freely at any time. Beyond this, they'll also be able to add in themselves if they're going to be participating. So they can add their kids if that's applicable, or they can add themselves. Or if you're functioning as an organization, you might be adding other clubs or maybe other sub-organizations.
Can I just say that's an awesome family you've got there? Just saying. So.
Yes, absolutely. So now that I have my participants in place, if I'm just a regular member, I can proceed with purchasing things, registering for things. I have everything that I need in order to check out. However, your administrators, your instructors, etc., they're going to need some additional tools in order to access the administrative features and functions. These come in the form of permissions. So when you have been granted specific permissions, which we'll look at in just a moment here, you'll be able to access the admin side. You can do this in two ways. The first way is to hover over your name and navigate to My Account, and then select the admin icon here to navigate to the administrative side. And if you were keen-eyed there, you also saw the second option, which is to hover over your name and select the admin option from the menu. So if you don't see those options, you'll need to contact your site administrator in order to be granted the correct permissions, which is the admin permission to see that. By default, you're going to land on the dashboard page. Now, on the administrative side of the system, which is what we're looking at right now, you'll see the admin menu on the left-hand side. Now, this is the entire suite of features and functions present here. If you don't see everything here, that's okay. That might mean that your permissions have been reduced or restricted based on the role that you play within the club there. If you do have, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Garrett, I just want to interrupt as well, and I meant to say this at the beginning. One of the things that I should mention is that as we actually do these webinars, one of the things that I'd just like to note is that these webinars are based off of our fully uplifted version of our software. Given that if you are using one of our different tiers of our software, you might see some of your menus be slightly different as well. So if you have questions about the features that you have available to you, please feel free to reach out to us at our support line at support@uplifterinc.com.
Yep, thank you very much. Now, if you do have the correct permissions, you'll be able to navigate to Settings, Permissions. And on this page, you're going to be able to work with what is known as permission groups. Now, we can create new groups on the right-hand side, or we can work with existing groups on the left. So let's use the full admin access group here to take a look at what the full admins get. Now, with each group that you create, you'll have three ways of customizing. You can customize the name, you can customize the members that are in the group, and you can customize the permissions that the group has. So the name you can customize anytime you'd like. This is just a free text field. The group members, you can add group members by beginning to type in a name. Just try and guess one here. Let's try John Smith here. There we go. So here we go. We'll type in a name and we can add Johnny Weir here. And maybe if we're mad at Johnny Weir, we can actually remove him from the group by using this delete icon. Similarly, on the permissions side, we can add permissions using this drop-down list. And as you can see, very few permissions have not been granted to this group, but we'll add this last one here. And as we go through these permissions, we can remove the unwanted ones by selecting the delete icon as well. If you have questions or concerns about what these permissions do, you can simply hover over these question mark icons to see more information about what these are going to grant. Additionally, on any administrative page that you're on, keep an eye out for this book icon. This was going to take you to the most pertinent article depending on the page that you're on. So me being on the permissions page here, I'm brought immediately to the permissions article by clicking that icon. In this article, we also have some permission group examples, which you may want to take a look at and see what sort of permissions might be good for your head coach, your public content manager, etc. There is also a comprehensive list of all of the permissions, which also offers some information about what pages you'll be able to access based on that permission being granted. So definitely keep an eye out for that icon, and that's available on any of these administrative pages. That's very, very helpful. Once you're happy with editing this permission group or any group that you're working with, scroll to the bottom and select Save. Now, if you are working on the Uplifter Payments tier, you won't have access to the permissions page, no matter what your level of permissions are. So instead of coming to the permissions page to access these permissions, instead you're going to navigate to your member's account. So this is available under People and Accounts, Member Accounts. You'll be able to enter into one of the member accounts, and you'll be able to grant them permissions by adding them to a group. Now you'll only have the full admin access group in this instance, which means they get the full suite of tools and full suite of reports and access, etc. So be very cautious about who you give that to. Excellent. So once you have finished up your permissions here, you're ready to begin working with one of the core elements of the system, which is programs. Programs are available through Products and Programs. Now, on this page, we're going to go through quite a bit. We're actually going to go top to bottom about how to create a program, but the page that we've landed on here, this is what's known as a manager page. Now, manager pages, you'll see them quite consistently throughout the system, and they give a great overview of the information about what you're looking for here. So as we land on the programs page, we see an overview of our programs. We can see here's a test day, here's a wild winter competition, etc., etc. You can also see some information about when it starts, the SKUs, when the registration starts and ends, as well as how many people are in the class, how many people are on the wait list. You can also edit, view, and copy this information. And these are very consistent options no matter what page that you're on. So be on the lookout for those to make your lives much easier, especially with the copy feature there. We're actually going to take a peek at updating this information from scratch together. And we're going to begin that by selecting this Add New from the toolbar here. This brings up the Program Edit page. The Program Edit page is essentially just a form where you fill in information based on the type of program that you're creating. To begin with, we're going to look at the Program Information section. And in this section, we can fill in the program name and description, which are exactly what they sound like. You can also see that if you have a multilingual site, you'll need to fill it in for both languages. You can then set up the program price and a program SKU. Now, within Uplifter, absolutely every product or program or ticket, etc., that you sell and offer through the site, every single one of them needs a SKU, and every SKU needs to be unique, which means you can't use the same SKU twice. So what we generally recommend is that you serialize your SKUs. So for instance, I might want to do, it's 2020 season, and maybe it's going to be my winter season, and maybe if I'm a skate club, maybe I'm going to do Can Skate, and this is Can Skate just 1 and 2, maybe 1 and 2 here instead of Can Skate 12. And then that would be it. Maybe I'll have like a Mondays at 5. So by having something like this, not only do we gain a lot of information at a glance at the SKU, but we can also very quickly create a new SKU for next year. So when I'm recreating this program next year, because my schedule hasn't changed that much, I can then simply say, this is the 21 season, but the rest of the SKU is still valid. So definitely keep that in mind. The next piece that we're going to be taking a look at is categories and category levels. Now, every single program that you create within your system is going to be structured based on the categories and category levels that you've defined within your system. These actually take us away from this page to Settings, Categories. Categories can be found on the left-hand side, and within each one of these categories, we'll have a series of category levels, as you can see on the right-hand side. The category is essentially the discipline or the split out of your curriculum. So as you can see, if you're a skating club, we've got Can Skate and Star Skate. If you were a gymnastics club, you might have Can Gym and Kinder Gym, stuff like that. MMA clubs might have boxing, judo, taekwondo, et cetera, et cetera. Within each one of these categories, we then have category levels. Now, the category levels generally move alongside the curriculum structure that you offer within that program. So again, if you're a skating club, this will be a very familiar structure to you of Can Skate 1, 2, 3, etc. Can Gym's very similar with Can Gym 1, 2, 3, etc. You can also see that we've added some additional category levels in here, like Can Skate tests, pre-Can Skate. Some people have these in their own categories, some people don't. It's totally up to you guys and how you want to be able to divvy things up. Generally, the main construct, however, is going to be your base curriculum. Within these category levels, we can also expand these and introduce things like requirements and restrictions. Now, these requirements and restrictions will then trickle down to the programs that you're creating that exist within these category levels. So when I'm generating a program, I need to select a category, and I need to select at least one category level. So in our example here, we're creating a Can Skate 1 and 2, which is very specific to beginners. And so I'm going to select these two options here. And by doing so, I'm also inferring that I want to follow these sets of rules. So if someone registers for this program and is valid for CanSkate 1, they would need to meet these requirements. Similarly, for CanSkate 2, they would need to meet these requirements. We'll talk a little bit about how people register into specific category levels in just a moment. But if you were interested in introducing these requirements and restrictions and controlling who can register for what and when, you can do so by adding a goal group to your category. So let's find one that doesn't have any restrictions at all. So here's our Free Skate Junior Bronze. This is just an example category. So I can select this tools icon here, and I can add a requirement group. Now, requirement groups are essentially your logic controller. This is going to dictate what we're actually looking for when we start to add our actual requirements in. So now that I have my requirement group, I can select tools again, and I can add requirements. Requirements come in all sorts of flavors: min and max age, gender, category level, etc. Let's use min age, and let's check by months. So I'm going to say need to be at least 1.5. I'm going to add that requirement to my category level. And now that I have, I'll see that below my requirement group. Let's quickly add another requirement of a max age, where they need to be at least 2.5, or they can be no more than 2.5, my apologies. And now that I have more than one requirement in here, and I have all my requirements that I want to add, now I'm going to return back to the requirement group. I'm going to select this tools icon, and I'm going to choose Edit Requirement Group. And by doing so, we can now work with the strictness. So I can say, oh, it's just going to be a warning if they don't meet these requirements. Maybe I'm actually going to prevent them even adding it to cart, or they can add it to cart, but they can't check out. So that gives them the ability to sort of review what they've done. So in this instance, I'm going to be really strict about this. I'm going to say prevent add to cart. And all I want is just one of them, which seems weird with age options here, but maybe I'm going to be weird and picky about it. So I'm going to select update group. And now my requirement group is going to be updated. It's going to let me know that it's preventing add to cart, and it's going to let me know that I only need one of these requirements. So they only need to meet one or the other. I may actually want to go back in this because age requirements make sense to have all. So now I'm going to set that to all. And now they need to be in between those two ages exactly. Excellent. So once again, once you've added in your restrictions and requirements, etc., these will essentially trickle down to the programs that you've generated within those categories and category levels. Every time that you create a program, you need to select one category and at least one category level within, but you can select as many as you'd like. So if you happen to have a class where all of your can skaters are on the ice or all of your can gymmers are on the floor, etc., you can mark off everyone who's involved in that program that day. Now, when it comes to registering into these programs, the system doesn't allow users to select the level that they're in. What that means to you guys is the structure and the requirements that you've introduced here will actually control which category level your participants fall into. In this particular structure, we've introduced a requirement that states that if they want to enter into CanSkate 6, they need to have completed CanSkate 5 along with some other achievements. And similarly, we've done that to 5 and 4, and etc. And that's exactly what this sort of tiered stepped structure represents, that these categories require their predecessors there. In that instance, if someone were to register for a program that I have marked off to involve CanSkate 1 to 6 or CanGym 1 to 6, etc., what would happen is the participant would essentially fall in from the top and say, do they qualify for 6? Nope, because they haven't done 5. Do they qualify for 5? Nope, because they haven't done 4, etc., etc., etc. And they would eventually land into your bottom category level, which generally should not have any super strict requirements unless, of course, you've backfilled your information. So especially if it's your first season or your first year with Uplifter, your bottom category level should probably just have some age requirements, and that's about it. Excellent. So that is categories and category levels. So we're going to pop back to the program option here, and we're going to select CanSkate, and we're going to select 1 to 6. And now we can move forward to the next section, which is the program event times. In this section, we can select the beginning date. So I'm going to say it's going to start November 1st, and it's going to go all the way to maybe February 29th here. So that is when the program begins and when the program ends. I also get to set a daytime description, which is just a custom text, which can really be anything that you'd like, but of course, the more concise and specific you can be, the better. So this being a Can Skate 1 and 2, actually my apologies, Can Skate 1 and 2 program that happens Mondays at 5, I might say Mondays at 5 p.m. And so when people are registering for this program, they'll be able to see this daytime description as well as when the first and last events occur. Beyond this, I'll also be able to generate events using this event handler feature. To begin, I'm going to select Add Events. This is going to ask me where the location is. It's going to ask me how often it repeats. So for instance, I'm going to do it at the shuttle run area, and I'm going to do it weekly every Monday, because this is our Mondays at 5. And that also dictates our start time. So we're going to do 5 o'clock. But maybe the suggestions in this dropdown don't capture my end time. Maybe it actually finishes at 5:55. So in this instance, what I can do is clear out this field here and work with it as though it's a text field. And now I've finished at 5:55. Next, I can also specify the first event date and the last event date for this specific series of events if I'd like to, but it's going to default to the program start and end date, so more often than not, you probably don't need to make adjustments to this. Last but not least, we're going to click OK, and that's going to generate our events. Now, not only can we see the series of events here, but we can also see the series of events in our calendar, so we can verify, oh yeah, you know what, that's going on exactly where I want it to, but oh, look at this. We have some sort of less than opaque, completely opaque options here, some pseudo-transparent options. This indicates skipped events. So what I can do is I can scroll down this list and I can actually find those events. These events were skipped because of my Christmas and New Year's holiday that I've entered in to my season. We'll talk about seasons in just a moment. But if I want to actually generate these events anyways, I can do so. I'm going to select this exclamation point here, and that's going to generate my event. So now if I go back, I can see that this one is fully opaque, and I can recognize that that has actually been generated and people will be able to attend this event. I will also see the event count in the top right here. So if I generate this one as well, I'm now at 17. If I choose to, I can say, you know what, oh, I made a mistake. I actually don't want to generate that one. So now I'm going to delete this event. Anytime you delete an event or edit an event that's in a series of events, so this entire list of events is a series because they're essentially all the same, just happening on different days, it's going to ask you, very similar to like a Google Calendar or things like that, do you want to affect just this one event? Do you want to affect all upcoming similar events or every event? In this instance, since I selected to delete, I'm just going to do only this event. So there we go. Similarly, if you wanted to make an edit to all of these items, you can certainly do so to one of these programs. So maybe, you know what, it actually changed, it ends at 5:45. When I make that change, my apologies. Oh, no, I'm silly. You can make edits. Sorry, it's like it's my first day. You can make edits to individual events, and that's no problem. If you want to make edits to all of your events, however, you're going to look for your recurrence. Now, your recurrence is actually tucked away under this option right here. I'm going to click once on it, and it expands my recurrence. So this actually dictates how these events were generated initially. And so if I make a change to this, that's actually going to affect every single event within that recurrence. I can also choose to refresh that at any time, so I can make sure that those effects or those changes took effect. Sorry. Excellent. So now that I'm happy with the events that I've generated, I've reviewed here, and yep, you know what? I've got those 2 days off because those are holidays. Perfect. I can now, if I'd like, select Create to generate this event. But we're going to be taking a deep dive into things, so we're actually going to select this Advanced Settings option. In here, we now see 2 more sections of our program that we can customize in order to make this program work and function exactly how we want. First is going to be the registration details, in which case we can specify the status. Now, absolutely everything within Uplifter is going to have, everything that you sell within Uplifter is going to have one of 3 statuses. It can be unavailable, which means that it's only available on the administrative side, and even then it's to a pretty limited degree. It can be beta, which means it's available on the admin and the public side, but only to those with the beta orders permission. Sorry, the beta purchasing permission that's been recently updated. That permission is something that we talked about at the beginning of this call, which is available through settings, permissions. And if you haven't been granted that permission, you won't be able to see beta status products on the public side of things. So beta is a great option for testing. You grant the permission, you set your products and programs to beta, and people can see those without your standard public being able to see them. Next, we have the registration start and cutoff times. This is when the registration opens and closes. We can also select a season, and this is going to dictate obviously where it falls into, but it's going to also control what type of holidays we're encountering as well. So if I did change this season, if that other season didn't have those holidays, it might actually cause these events to be generated. So it's definitely something to consider. Again, we're going to be taking a look at seasons, well, right now actually. So we're going to pop over to our seasons. This is available through Products and Programs, Seasons. On this page, we're going to see a season calendar, and we can use this drop down here to view different seasons if we'd like to. Within this page, we can add new seasons, or we can work with seasons that already exist. We can also add new programs directly from this page. This is also where you'd come to update your volunteer requirements, which we won't be touching on in this call today, but there is a full volunteer system in the software. Beyond that, we also have the ability to copy this season, which we'll look at in just a moment, and we can also restore archived seasons, which also implies that we can archive seasons too. We're going to select to edit this season, and whether you're creating a new season or editing, you'll see the same form here, which includes a season name in both English and French if you have the languages enabled. You'll have a season start and end date and an age cutoff, which we'll come back to in just a moment. You'll also have holidays, exception days, and season event days. Now, holidays, this Christmas and New Year's Eve, this is something that we've already seen. Holidays affect the way that your programs generate events on the calendar. So holidays will actually halt all programs from generating on the day or days that you specify, unless you manually say, no, generate this event for me in the program edit page. Exception days will do the same thing as holidays, except you can specify a start and end time, as well as set a location. Last but not least, season event days will allow you to specify that something's going on your calendar, but it doesn't actually affect how your programs generate events. So this is perfect for things like year-end shows, or maybe you guys have a fundraiser that doesn't otherwise affect your standard class times. And at the bottom here, if you've made any changes, you can select Save. This is also where you can come to archive a season. If you've got some old seasons in there, you want to tuck away that data and not see it every time you land on certain pages, you can archive this season, which also in turn archives all of the programs within that season, which is a great way to sort of shorten your program list when you're landing onto Products and programs there. At any time, of course, you can return to the seasons page and you can restore any archived seasons, which we don't have any of presently. Next, we can also use one of the most fan favorite tools from this page as well. That's the Copy This Season option. Now, as you work with Uplifter, your very first season, you're going to put, your hard work in there. You've got all your programs set up. You're really proud of what you've done. But now it's ready for the next season, and you got to get ready for that. And you're sort of thinking, oh man, that's a lot of programs to create for the next season as well. Well, lucky for you, we have the season copy feature, and we can click this option here, which allows us to not only create a new season, but we can also copy the season into an existing season if we wanted to as well. So if you happen to have created your season already and then you thought about the copy feature, that's totally fine. You can still use this feature. When you select either new season or existing season, you can then save your programs into beta if you'd like to. That's definitely a wise choice. You can also add your pre-existing or pre-registered skaters or athletes or participants into the next season. Now, this is generally a gymnastics specific feature, but there are instances where skating clubs do it or MMA clubs do it, and etc. So you can check that off if you'd like to. Last but not least, we're going to click Copy to Season. This is going to bring us to the Batch Create page. Now, this page, as you can guess here, is very similar to Excel. It's just a nice spreadsheet. This allows you to work with all of your programs at once. And as we scroll down here, we can see the various programs that we're copying from one season to another. We can also see that each one of the program names has this dash copy on the end. And each one of these program SKUs, because we apparently copied this multiple times, has a dash copy, dash copy. Now, if we want to make some changes to these programs before we actually generate them, we definitely can. Not only can you work with each individual cell here, you can also work with all the cells at once or even just a group of cells. Let's take a look at how to do that. So this Starscape 1, 2, 3, and 4, I can work individually by just double-clicking into the cell and editing how I want to edit. I can also select a cell and I can drag down. Now what this is going to do is copy the value in this cell and drag it down to the bottom. So the name is probably not where you do this, but we're going to do it anyways. We're going to drag it down here, and now everything's Starscape 1. Control Z or Control Z, depending on your preferred pronunciation there, does actually undo actions that you've done there. Additionally, we can also use cell number 1 of a column to affect the entire column. So we're going to select this little drop-down arrow here, and this is going to give us some cool little tools. Now, these tools specifically are available in the program name and the program SKU options. The rest of your columns will have a variety of different features and functions that you can utilize, but these are where the magic happens. So we have the ability to update, append, or replace, and replace is definitely the best because you can replace a certain word or phrase and you can replace it with whatever you'd like. So I'm going to look for dash copy and I'm going to replace it with nothing. And now all of my programs names are up to date. We're going to do the same thing to these SKUs here, but this time, because we've copied it so many times, we're going to select dash copy, and we're going to replace that again with nothing. And now all of our SKUs are nice and clean, but they're not up to date. What we need to do is we need to change the years. As we noted previously when we were generating the program, we talked a little bit about serializing your SKU, and this is one of the main reasons because this is a very powerful and quick way to update your programs, and it just makes your life so much easier if you've serialized your SKUs. So these ones are sort of serialized. We took a lot of liberty with the word serialization here, but we're going to use that same tool to replace, and I'm going to replace the year 19 with the year 20, and I'm going to replace the year 18 with the year 19. And now all of my SKUs are up to date and ready to go. Yeah, there's a few instances where that wasn't true. So there's probably some strange text that was happening there. Excellent. So this is looking good. And when I'm happy with all of this, of course, I can scroll to the right-hand side and I can work with other features and elements of these programs as well. First class, last class, age cutoff, etc., which again, we'll double back on just a second. Registration start dates, costs, proration, pretty much anything and everything you could ever need to update. One of the few things that you can't update from this page is the season that these programs are in, because you're copying right now, so that would be kind of silly. And the other thing is you can't update the categories or category levels. So it will be important to copy over the programs that are truly existing within your system from one season to another. If there are programs among this list that you don't want to copy, do all of your updates, change all of your settings, etc. And then the last piece is come to this create field and unmark the ones you don't want to create. So maybe these ones aren't happening this year, so I'm going to not create those. And when I'm happy with what I've done, I hit the create button and that generates those programs for me and I'm all set. So that's a brand new season done in just a few minutes. So that is the seasons page. Now, one thing I sort of noted at the beginning of the seasons update here is that we were going to double back on the age cutoff field. So the age cutoff field is available at the season level. And as you can see, it has a red asterisk here. This marks it that it's a mandatory field. So you do have to set it here on the settings. Now, this field indicates when users have to meet age requirements. When we were speaking about categories and category levels, we talked about introducing requirements and restrictions, and some of those would be age requirements. So, you know, we said they had to be between the ages of 1.5 and 2.5. The age cutoff date is when they need to meet those age requirements. So they need to be between 1.5 and 2.5 by 2020 here, April 4th, or April 30th, sorry. So that is an age cutoff date. Now this will trickle down to all of the programs within this season. However, if we need to get more specific, we absolutely can. In the program setup here, we also have an age cutoff date field. This is not a mandatory field, but you can set it on a program by program basis. So if there are some programs that sort of shy away from this specific date, you can get more specific for those. Additionally, we also have a withdraw deadline, which is only used systemically in one particular way. We're not going to be looking at that presently, but this is generally just for administrative reference. It's not a required field, and you can leave that blank if you'd like. We also have the max registrations and the max waitlist, which allows you to specify how many users can actually register for this and how many people can put their names in the hat in case a spot opens up. The last section of a program here is the payment section. This is where we can specify a payment method group. Now, we won't dive too deeply into payment method groups today, but essentially you can set up groupings of different payment methods like check, cash, gift certificate, credit card, etc. So you can very quickly access and specify what type of payments you're willing to accept for the product or program that you're setting up. So here you see some examples. We accept absolutely every type of payment or just online, so credit card and gift certificate only. You can customize these however you'd like. Additionally, if your system is set up to do so, you'll have the ability to work with your taxes. So maybe I don't want to charge taxes on this specific program. And last but not least, you'll have the ability to toggle both proration and your installments. Now, the really cool thing about proration is if you happen to set up your proration, you'll also see, oh, and actually my apologies, you need to save. Once you've actually saved this proration setting, you'll also see your prorations to the side. So we're going to save this in just a second, and I'll show you guys that. Beyond that, you can also set up your installments. So if you would like to allow users to pay a little bit at a time, you can absolutely do that. That's set up on a program by program and product by product basis as well to give you as much granularity as you need. Last but not least, we're going to hit create. And as long as I didn't, yeah, I messed up a whole bunch of stuff because I wasn't paying attention. Let's call this adstufa. There we are. Beautiful.
That's a great name, Garrett.
Yes.
As you're filling that out, a couple of things I will mention as well. What Uplifter does is we actually provide this sort of cascading tree where precedents will take over from the season down to the category level, and then down to the program. So you might see a lot of functionality that repeats from one element to another. So for example, as Garrett mentioned, the age cutoff date, you can set that at the season level, which means that it'll apply to all the programs within that season. Or you can set it at the program level, where it will look at the program level first to see if there's a specific age cutoff date there. And then if there isn't anything set there, then it'll push up to the season. So a lot of that happens, that also happens with your requirements. So after Garrett saves here, you'll also see that you're able to set prerequisites or requirements at a specific program level. And once you've done that, it will sort of override any of the prerequisites or requirements you might have created at a category level as well. Did you find your program? There we go. Okay. Garrett, I'll let you continue on. Sorry.
No problem. Fantastic. So yes, exactly. So you can add requirements to your program only after you've saved that program, of course. We can also see the proration schedule here. Now, of course, this apparently being my first day, I forgot to add the price in here. Once I added the price, the parameters that I set in my proration here then calculated this proration schedule. Now, it is of note that this as of option here is exactly what that name would apply. As of this date, it will be this price. So this can cause a little bit of confusion. So my very first event in this program happens as we scroll up here. Whoops, my apologies. As we scroll up, it happens on November 4th, 2019, and it ends at 5:45. So if I scroll back to this, at 5:45 on November 4th, this is when my price actually changes. So after the event has passed, the cost changes. So I can also update this, and now I have fewer options here. So this is recalculating after 3 events have passed. So as of these dates, these costs change. So you can really customize this however you'd like and make it work and function exactly how you need it to. Of course, any program that you generate within the system can also be deleted just at the bottom here. But like many features and functions and tools and etc. within Uplifter, if there is attached data to it, you won't be able to delete it. What that means is for a program, for instance, if you have registrants, you won't be able to delete this. So that's definitely something to consider. If you have some registrations, you've got some invoices where this program exists, but you want to remove it, you won't be able to do that until you've addressed those invoices.
So I know we've gotten really long into the tooth here with programs, but I did want to dive into this because this is a question we get often, which is the age cutoff date. A lot of people get confused with the age cutoff date, and they try and think, well, when does a child have to be born in order to be part of this program? Because we've provided the flexibility of allowing you to actually set up age cutoff date and requirements at both a category level and a specific program level. Typically, the age cutoff date is a date within your season. Think of it as very similar to competition requirements. People can't compete at a particular category unless they are at least the age of 16 by this date. So just think of it as what is the date that I want to calculate the birth date for, not what is their birth date. So the age cutoff date is very often a very recent date, and very often that's the gotcha that we get in terms of support questions for age cutoff date.
Very true. Thank you very much. The last thing that we're going to touch on that is sort of related to programs is locations. Your locations can be set up in the system via settings, facilities, and locations. Now here you can add as many facilities as you would like, and additionally within each facility you can add as many locations as you would like. The difference between the two, the facility being the actual building, the physical address that people are going to, so they're going to go to Bristol Court at LOLOL, and the location is the area within that building. So this building happens to have 2 rinks, and I want to notify people they're going to go to the west one or the south one. Excellent. So that is facilities and locations. We are halfway there.
Are we really only halfway there? Before you go away, do you want to show the fully uplifted feature where we can customize the colors of the locations in the calendar because we're here?
Do I?
Do you ever?
Yes, I do. So every time that you create a location, when you add them or when you're editing them, you can also specify the most beautiful colors. So if you like to make things nice and pretty on the calendar, you can absolutely do that. So if we pop over to the seasons calendar, we can see we get all the colors here. These are actually system generated. So if you don't specify a color, the system will just pick them for you. How drab. So I am going to specify colors myself, and I'm going to make them horrible because I'm not very good at design.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that.
It's too late.
Oh!
There we go. Look at all these horrible red ones. So you can make this calendar look exactly how you want it to look. This will also be displayed on the public side of things with these color codes as well. So having something as eye-jarring as this might not be advised.
Can you change that? I'll change that back for you later.
Yeah, you can change it back.
Okay, I'll change it back later.
Fantastic. So the next piece of the puzzle we're going to be taking a look at is products, subscriptions, and tickets. These are available through products and programs, products and subscriptions. And on this page, this is where we can build anything that essentially isn't a program. Very similar to the program manager page, we land on the product manager, and here we can see all of the products we've made thus far. And as we scroll through, we're going to see some from the top information, like the ticket names, product names, how many tickets have been sold, or if it's a subscription. We can also see how many have been redeemed if it is a ticket, and things of that nature. To begin creating one of these items, we're going to select Add New from the toolbar here. This brings us to a form very similar to that of the program form. So a lot of these fields are now pretty familiar. We've got our product status, so unavailable beta public. We've got our SKU, which needs to be unique compared to any other product you sell. You can also set your name and your description. You can also specify how this is going to apply. Now, in certain circumstances, on certain tiers, you can only set your products to apply on a per participant basis if it is indeed a subscription. So definitely keep that in mind if this is grayed out. But on other instances, you can specify that for any type of product you offer. You'll also have a volunteer credit section, which allows you to create not only things like buyouts of your volunteer requirements, but it also allows you to generate other volunteer products, such as, so the chocolate bar boxes and what am I thinking of? Lottery booklets. There we go. Couldn't think of that. So you can do all sorts of different volunteering options here and specify the number of credits they gain from purchasing this item. I'm going to scroll back to the top here because we also have this special checkbox. Now, it is very often the case that people want to create discounts based on purchases. And when it comes to products, subscriptions, and tickets, by default, they aren't actually associated to a season. What that means to you as a club is if you have a discount that looks throughout the season, so if you've ever bought this within the season, you get that for X dollars off. Well, if you want to include products and subscriptions in that, you need to associate this product, subscription, or ticket to a specific season in order to accomplish that. Now, if you are interested in learning more about this, we are actually hosting a discounts webinar. So as of this webinar, the discounts webinar, will be hosted on Wednesday, November 27th. Definitely going to be a very involved one. We've got a lot of questions about discounts to make them work exactly how you want to. Super flexible system, so definitely join us for that.
Bring a lunch for that one.
Yeah. So as we scroll down here, we also see the payment section. And here we get to specify the cost as well as the percentile. We also have the payment method. There's exactly how the program had it. One of the cool things is the percentile fee, though. So if you do want to introduce a percentile fee that compensates for costs you're seeing from Uplifter, or if you have online payments from Bambora, then you can actually add an administrative fee that maybe adds, an extra 5% to them. So this administrative fee can be added to invoices, and we'll talk about mandatory fees in just a moment, can be added to invoices, and that way you can compensate for fees that your club is seeing. Similarly to the programs here, we have our taxes option here, and we can also specify whether or not this product offers installments as well. Now, you may have noted that we have skipped over the ticketing and subscription section. This is because if we fill in the product information and the payment section here, we've effectively created a product with an Uplifter, but we can create variations on products as well, such as tickets and subscriptions. By checking this box off here, we can effectively create this product into a ticket product. This is a serialized ticket that users can print off, and your administrators or whomever you'd like to enable to do so can then scan this QR code with their cell phones, their tablets, etc. Now you get to specify how many tickets are available. You can also specify whether a ticket can be redeemed more than once. So maybe this is going to be a come and visit us 5 times with this one ticket. You can also specify whether or not this can be redeemed for attendance. Now, in concert with this maximum redemptions, this is a great way to introduce drop-in fees or, experience our club tickets and stuff like that. So you can really bolster your roster and your attendance using these features here. With this redeem for attendance set to either allowed or required, when a user scans this QR code, the system's going to ask them what program that this is for, and they can enter in that participant into the program for that day. So that way you can take attendance on them, you can evaluate them just for that one single day, that one single event of the program. Additionally, you can also mark whether or not the ticket is printable if they haven't paid you in full. So if people are scanning your tickets, you can rest assured that they've paid you. And last but not least, you also have a ticket background image. You can upload an image and replace this Uplifter branding here with whatever branding that you'd like. And of course, you'll see the example on the right-hand side there. You can also specify this in the settings as well if you'd like to set a global background so that you don't have to do this ticket by ticket every time. Now, if we don't enable this as a ticket, we will then have the option to enable this as a subscription instead. Subscriptions have one of the most powerful features within Uplifter, and that's to make it mandatory. By checking this box off, people don't have any say about purchasing this. They absolutely have to. And this works very, very well in concert with your percentile fee or even a dollar fee, where you're introducing an administrative fee to each invoice. You say, yep, you have to pay for it. You don't get any say in it. Additionally, you can also control who would see this fee, either in a mandatory or a suggestion sense, by enabling your checkout filters and tagging the specific items that you'd like. Now, when it comes to tagging, people have a lot of questions. What can I tag here? How is that going to affect me, et cetera, et cetera. When it comes to tagging the right thing here, the question is, when should people be seeing this fee? More often than not, you can rely on tagging categories and category levels. So when we were taking a look at the structure of our categories and category levels, maybe we want to introduce a fee that only applies to our star skaters, or only applies to our kinder gym, or only applies to our boxers, etc. What we can do then is we can tag this category. We do that by simply beginning to type and selecting it from the system suggestions. As you can see, by typing in star, not only do we see the category, but we see the category levels as well. One of the things here is you also see that this is only showing 5 of 6 results. If you need to see that 6th result, you just need to get more specific. So star skate, and then I can say 6 or 5 or etc. And I can select the one that I want. But here we're going to select the category. And as Jackie previously explained, this is a hierarchical structure as well, where it's going to trickle down to all of the category levels within this category, and therefore all of the programs within those category levels. So this means that anytime someone buys a Starskate program, they need to pay this fee, or now they need to pay this fee because I made it mandatory. So that's something to consider. You'll see tagging in some other locations as well. We're going to be touching on policies in just a moment. We'll see tagging there as well. So this is a great way to associate the item, the product, the policy, etc., to something specific. When it comes to your insurance fees, like your Skate Canada fee, your Gymnastics Ontario fee, GBC fee, etc., it's very highly recommended that unless you absolutely need to tag otherwise, that you do not tag anything here. Now, when it comes to gymnastics fees, there are some very specific tiers and levels. It's not as one-off as the Skate Canada fee. So in that instance, you would probably be tagging your categories or category levels to specify who sees what fee and when. But for a Skate Canada fee, you would simply leave this blank because when it applies is going to be dictated by the duration of subscription. Now, for your standard subscriptions here, you have a couple of different options. None will imply that the subscription expires immediately. This is perfect for administrative fees and things like that, where you want it to apply once per invoice, no matter what the situation. For start and end date, you can specify an effective start and end date. And what will happen is the system will look for anyone registering for a program that has at least one event in between these 2 days. And in so doing, it will either offer or automatically apply this subscription. Last but not least for our standards is our effective duration. By selecting effective duration, we can specify a duration in here, and it will figure out based on the date of purchase when that would expire. So if I bought it today, it would expire October 26th. Maybe we want to do 365 days. That'll be October 22nd. Or maybe we're going to do 10 months, etc. Now, one of the really cool things, and one of the things that if you join us for our accounting and reporting, or sorry, my apologies, the invoices and reporting webinar, you'll learn about these type of fields, is that they can also include relative terms. What that means is you can also add in things like tomorrow, or first day of next month. And it'll figure out based on the way that you've written that in, what that would be. So that's a very cool thing to consider. You can also do that for your reports as well.
That's basically available on any of our date fields for the filters. That's within our reports and the manager pages. And it's really, really handy to help you get around very quickly with an Uplifter. And you can certainly save your links once you've generated those relative dates. And they're very useful for you if you want for quick navigation. Sorry, go ahead.
You keep saying sorry. These are perfect. These are great pieces of information.
I feel like I'm encroaching on your webinar here when I interrupt like
How dare you? So the very last piece that we have for duration is Skate Canada season. Now, this is a Skate Canada associated club that we're looking at right now. If you happen to be affiliated with Gymnastics Ontario or Gymnastics BC or Wushu Canada, etc., you would also see a different duration here. So by selecting Skate Canada season or Gymnastics BC season, etc., you would also be able to select the season that this subscription is going to reside within. So I'm going to select the 1920 season here, as this is the most up to date. And if my subscription is set to per participant, I will also have the option of marking this off as my official Skate Canada membership. Now, as you had noted, if I don't have this on a per participant basis, you might be asking yourself, well, what does this do? I've set it almost all the way, but I haven't checked this box off. This essentially creates a subscription that parallels your Skate Canada fee, your Skate Gymnastics BC season, etc. So this is a great way to introduce things like club fees or club memberships that happen to parallel your association seasons as well. But we are going to select participant, and we're going to check this off. And in so doing, we've effectively created our Skate Canada membership or our specific affiliations insurance fee. Now, we won't dive too deeply into this. We have a Skate Canada webinar available, so we won't talk about that much more now, but that is a great way to set things up. But we also have information about this for Gymnastics BC, Gymnastics Ontario, and the best ways to filter those specific memberships.
Can I just interrupt really quickly? I know we're kind of running out of time, but I just wanted to mention one of the advantages to using Uplifter, if your member association is actually part of the Uplifter family, is that not only do we actually charge the fees once you've actually added all of these elements here, but as well what we do is we actually connect with the association that you are a member of, and we actually check to see if there's any associated membership with that particular participant before actually adding that to your invoice. So that saves a lot of possibility of double charging participants, performing refunds and whatnot. And it's because we have those direct connections with our partner member organizations that we're able to actually check their database to see if maybe another organization within the association has purchased those memberships, and use some very complicated algorithmic matching in the background for the participants to determine whether or not those unique participants have already purchased those memberships elsewhere. So, sorry, go ahead, Garrett. I'll be quiet now.
Yeah, all the things that she just said. So those are some really cool features and definitely some stuff to check out. Fantastic. So we are going to move on from your subscriptions, tickets, and products. We're going to pop over to our second last topic. I know, thank you guys so much for your patience and perseverance here. We've got two more topics and they're both very quick. The first is going to be our policies. Policies are available through settings, policies, and on this page, you can generate policies that show up during the checkout process. So here we have a couple of examples, our media policy and our safety policy here. We can also generate new policies, and these come in two variations, either mandatory or non-mandatory. So by checking this off, users will have to both view and accept the policy. By unchecking this, they'll have to view the policy, but they don't necessarily have to accept it. You'll also be able to set a name for the policy and the policy details here, just like anything else. And as noted previously, you'll also be able to link to, just like we were talking about with the subscriptions. So maybe for sake of argument, your can skaters have a specific safety policy that's unique to them because they're all kind of clumsy. So you can put in can skate and select that option, and now only your can skaters see this version, and maybe for your other version, your safety policy here, you would tag your other elements like star skate, etc., so that only they see this particular one. With your policies, you'll also be able to report on who has accepted or not accepted these policies. You'll also be able to see what versions they accepted by navigating to the invoice on which they accepted those policies. So if you happen to have a safety policy that says, please don't fall because we don't have any insurance, and then you get insurance and you update that to, hey, we have insurance now, fall all you want, now you can verify who accepted which version of those policies.
Is that really how that works?
Yeah, follow as much as you want.
Okay, I'll remember that. Okay, excellent.
Fantastic. So the very last element that we have on our list today is a very fun one. It's custom fields. This is available under settings, global settings. And depending on how you've structured your permissions and who has permissions and access to what, it'll be a pretty reduced number of people in your club that have access to this page. But on this page, you'll have the custom field tab. And this tab allows you to generate what are known as custom fields within the system. Uplifter asks for a lot of information by default, first name, last name, gender, birthday, postcode, etc., etc. But there might be some pieces of information that are important to you or your club that you want to gather that we don't ask for by default. And so that's exactly where custom fields come in. On the left-hand side here, we can see variations on the custom fields. Participant fields will be attached to a participant's profile and follow them through their entire career. So you might have something like, do you have any previous experience? But you might also have questions like, do you have any medical information we need to know about, any allergies, etc. Member fields will attach to the member's account. So this is generally, like we've noted at the beginning of the call, usually synonymous with mom and dad, your parent and guardian. So this is a great place to ask for what's an emergency number, or who's okay to pick up your kid in an emergency. Instructor fields will be attached to an instructor's profile. So you might have something like, when did you finish your first aid certification? You can also ask them to upload files. We'll talk about the variations of files in just a second. Invoice fields will show up at the bottom of an invoice during the checkout process. This is a great place to ask if they have any additional comments as they're checking out, or if they want to refer someone, or how did they hear about you, stuff like that. And last but not least, invoice item fields, which is probably one of the most popular ones. This also shows up during the checkout process, but it's specifically attached to a product or program that you're selling. Now, let's take a look at the variations that we can create here. When we select to add an invoice item, or really any one of these options here, we'll be able to specify a field name and some help text. The help text that you write here will show up as a question mark icon that people can hover over to learn more about what you're saying or what you're asking for. Additionally, you'll also be able to specify where the field appears. For things like invoice fields and invoice item fields, it's pretty limited. It's only at the time of checkout. But for participant fields, you can specify things like when they're creating their account for the first time, or their profile for the first time. Members can see it on their account, so when they log in and look at their participant profiles, they can edit it at that time. You can also do it at the time of checkout, etc. You can also mark that these fields also show up on your participant listings as well as your class lists and reports, which is perfect for things like allergies and medical information. You definitely want your coaches and instructors to know about that during the class. You then get to specify the field type. We have a ton of variations here, and some of these variations might not be available to you depending on the tier that you're on, but as a whole here, we have whole numbers, we have free-form text. Just as an FYI, if you are asking for an emergency number or a number at all, we highly recommend the free-form text option, as generally people want to introduce things like dashes and brackets, which aren't accepted as numbers, so you want to do a free-form text. You can also do a date drop down here, so you can say pick a date between these two dates. You can do a drop down box, which allows you to specify the options they need to select from. You can do a file upload as noted earlier, so PDFs, PNGs, bitmaps, etc. Pretty much any type of file you could ever want to request from someone. You also have the option, depending on your tier, to request MP3s. So if you are hosting a competition, you can ask them to upload their music alongside maybe their PPC or their other, other registrations, and that way you have that music available to you and you can download from your Uplifter system. You can also do image uploads. Now, if you were keen-eyed under the file upload, we also had some image files here, but the difference being with the image upload is you can also be really specific about your min and max widths, heights, etc. You also have a serialized number, which most clubs probably won't use, but this allows you to apply a serialized number to maybe your participants, let's say, and you can count exactly how many participants you have and say, hey, what's your participant number for our club? And they can say it's 1, 2, 3. Excellent. Next, we have the Skate Canada Club. Of course, this is specific to Skate Canada clubs. This allows you to specify which home club skaters are with. Now, this will actually probably be only available for our enterprise tiers, so generally that's for the section offices. And last but not least, the figure skating element field, which allows you to specify a figure skating discipline and will let them pick from drop-downs what they're doing for their element, and will automatically generate their figure skating element code. So they don't need to know the codes off by heart anymore. So if you are hosting a competition, that is definitely very handy to have. With any field that you're creating, you can also specify whether or not it's required. You can also specify whether or not it's unique. Now, unique, more often than not, 99% of the time, it's going to be set to no. This essentially states that everyone who's answering this question needs to give a unique answer. So if 2 kids are allergic to peanuts and you've set this to unique, only one of those people can say, yeah, I'm allergic to peanuts. The other one might have to mistype or something, and it's going to look silly.
So custom fields are actually very, very powerful to allow you to do a whole number of different things. Just a few examples of how clubs have used custom fields. Some clubs use it so that they actually have their participants actually save their music. If you rotate playing music during different practices. Some clubs actually use it so that they actually store their entire, for skating clubs, for example, their entire PPC sheet for their programs, and they can actually store that on a per participant basis so that they have that in their profile, so that when they do go and compete, they can very automatically and easily pull that down and not have to ask their coach, what's my plan program content sheet look like? So that's right within their profile, and they'd be able to see it. Other things you can do is collect information throughout checkout. We've actually had clubs use this and attach this to, for example, like a program, a product, so that they can gather more information. So let's say you're selling club jackets, you can just sell the club jacket for $65 and create a drop-down field that only appears for that jacket, and shows small, medium, large, extra large. You can also have these fields be tagged so that they only appear with particular categories, particular programs, particular seasons even, or particular products. The tagging features is basically how you control those elements in terms of where it appears during your checkout. So lots of different ways that you can actually leverage this. And we've actually tried to give a lot of different ways that you can actually leverage the information once it's been collected from your members throughout the checkout process and in their profile. So.
That is true, and please join us for our discounts webinar, because we're going to be talking about how to use what they selected from these options to discount or increase costs. So that's definitely going to be some cool stuff to learn as well. That is it, folks. We've done it. We've made it all the way through. That is our last topic for today. I just want to let people know that they can at any time go to our Learning Center. And from here, we also have the Learn Uplifter webinars article, which talks a little bit about some of our upcoming webinars and when you can join them. I believe most of you guys have joined pretty much everyone or signed up for everyone. We'll also have links, etc., in here to any of our past webinars. So you're more than welcome to view those at your leisure if you weren't able to make them live, etc. So that's really powerful. And of course, you can always search our Learning Center at any time for anything that you guys have questions about. So definitely keep that in mind, learn.uplifterinc.com. And you are also more than welcome to reach out at any time you'd like to support@uplifterinc.com. We're always here and ready to help you out. Jackie, any final words?
No, other than I really want to thank everybody for coming to the webinar. As Garrett mentioned, there will be a link, and this is great information to share to new administrators that actually you want to share the load with and have them help you with using Uplifter and empowering your club and getting the most out of Uplifter. So as always, if you have questions, please feel free to email us at support@uplifterinc.com. Garrett, what else did you want to share with us as well?
That's everything. Thank you so much. It was wonderful to have everyone here. Fantastic to see so many people join. Thank you so much for your time today, and we hope to see you next Wednesday for our next session of Webinar Wednesdays.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.